because apart from, and Fionn is not here today because she's had childcare issues that she needed to resolve, but you all know Fionn, or most of you know Fionn anyway, the programme administrator. She's worked with me for the last 10 years and has moved over to the Golden Thread with me. Fee and I work from our office in Mould primarily, but the rest of the team are all based at home, which is why I thought all the contact details would be useful for you if you do want to make contact with them. So we've had this logo designed for the programme, so you should hopefully be seeing this around and about in different things that we're producing. Obviously everything we're doing is bilingual. We're funded by the Welsh Government under Sustainable Social Services grant funding for 3 years. And we are funded in partnership. So we're working as the primary lead for this programme, and we're working with Age Connects Wales, Diverse Cymru, and as I say, we're funded by Welsh Government. Okay, so far? And Age Connects and Diverse Cymru are on our board. We have an official board that oversees what we're doing, as chaired by Vicky. And so they're really supportive of everything we're doing, and it's such a brand new piece of work because actually what we're trying to do is support the implementation of the Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act, Part 10, around advocacy. So it's so new. The actual implementation of the Act only started in April this year, and we're trying to work with a range of audiences to ensure that this happens. So why are we doing it? As I said, to support the implementation of the Act, but a lot of you will know that I've done a lot of work over the years around advocacy, trying to make sure that it's available for older people. What we're trying to do now is trying to make sure it's available for all adults, because that's our remit within this piece of work. And it's been very ad hoc, it's been very patchy across Wales. You know, sometimes you can get it, sometimes you can't, sometimes it's very specialist in an area. And with the new independent professional advocacy service that's in the Act, which is a new duty, that we need to make sure that that is it's a quality advocacy service that's provided consistently across Wales so that local authorities can uphold their duties. Hi Val, sorry, I didn't even realise you weren't here until we did introductions.
Oh,
do you want
sorry.
to just...
I'm Val Billingham, I'm a Commissioning Development Officer for North Wales, and I've got this in my diary for 12:30, so apologies.
That's okay, you're just trying to get away from the filming really, weren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to make sure that we improve access to high quality advocacy services, so that the services that are commissioned are strong and they are available across Wales and they're consistent in the way that they're commissioned, although there'll be regional and local variations in that. Advocacy came into the Act so late that we know that it's something that's not clearly understood by people who have got to commission it. They may have been commissioning lots of different types of advocacy over the years, or they may not have. But this new independent professional advocacy service, it's been our bread and butter for the last couple of years. So the expertise we've got in the team will support the commissioners to make sure that they can commission it in an appropriate way. And also, we need to make sure that the people who need the services are aware of it. Now, this will happen a little bit further down the line in the programme, maybe next year, but we've got to make sure that people are aware of their rights, they understand advocacy, and they know how to access it and why it's important. So I'm going to hand over now just to the team. So you might want to scurry on over here a little bit so we can get into the camera, because I'm going to ask, these are the 3 audiences that we'll be working with. So I'm going to hand over to the team now so that they can talk a little bit about the commissioning team first of all, around this work that they're doing and what their plans are. Paul, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. You're going to stand where Lou was, please.
Yeah.
Cheers.
So, as I said, I'm Paul Swan, Programme Development Officer for Commissioning, covering South East Wales. So that's Cwm Taff, Cardiff and the Vale and Gwent, and the 9 local authorities that come within those areas. So part of my role at this stage, 2 months nearly into the job, is building contacts and networks within that area, and also meeting partners and extracting what information I can from them about their working relationships with commissioning teams and so on. So it's very much sort of gauging, getting a feel for what's happening on the ground in terms of commissioning. And in my work programme that's been agreed for this next phase, I've got a couple of specific tasks. One is to tease out the difference between the information, advice and assistance service, which is one of the new innovations under the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, and independent professional advocacy, which is our main focus. So there are a number of issues around that which we're exploring and trying to get clear on. And the other main area of work is to develop a framework, a commissioning framework for adults advocacy under the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. We don't know if it will be called a framework or a national approach or what at this stage. So again, it's having conversations with different people, being clear about what's already available, particularly around children and young people's advocacy, who are some way down the track, and they're currently developing a national approach to children and young people's advocacy. But interestingly, in a conversation this morning with someone who works in the children's advocacy field, there are some real challenges that providers face under the existing framework. So it's not going to be a question of simply replicating what's happening in one area into adults, because clearly we need to be doing some creative thinking and coming up with a model that's going to work both for children and young people's advocacy and adults advocacy.
Lovely.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
Okay. Hugh.
Hiya. Like Paul, is this perfect?
Spot on, mate.
Well done.
Could be better.
You've got to check it all first. Like Paul, I'm working on developing relationships with my commissioners in my area. I work in Mid and West Wales and the Western Bay, so that's Powys, Carmarthenshire, Ceredigion, Pembrokeshire, Swansea, Neath, Talbot and Bridgend, which is, I try and test myself on that at least once a day. I at the moment, as I say, building all those relationships, but my main area of work is to develop and research the good practice guides, or good practice guides, depending on how we decide to implement those, around commissioning advocacy, to ensure that each local authority is starting from a good grounding of information, because we're finding varying levels of understanding around what independent professional advocacy is and their duties under the Act, so that they can then move forward and commission a strong service which will meet their duties under the Act. It's a lot of learning. It's been a lot of research, a lot of reading things from inside Wales, outside the UK even. I've had conversations with people in Australia, which has confused my time zone clock, and really getting to grips with how other people see advocacy as a service, because as it's called, with a golden thread advocacy programme, and it goes through the whole part of the Act, the whole part of how people work with social services, and there's just not always the best understanding of what that actually means. So a big part of our initial work is making sure that that understanding is there. And that's about me at the moment.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Val and I am the equivalent of Paul and Hugh in North Wales. So my patch is basically the Betsy Cadwallader Health Board area and the 6 councils in North Wales that fit within that. And a lot of the things I've been doing are very similar to what Paul and Hugh have been doing, getting out networking, meeting the people who actually have to implement the new legal requirements, finding out how much they understand of them, where they're at with them, and finding out how they think that we can support them, because we need to be really responsive in how we support people and work with them in the way that's best for them. At the same time, the other challenge is to get consistency across Wales. So I'm very keen that we network everybody together across Wales to ensure consistency and to make sure that they cross-fertilise with each other and bring each other along as a cohort of good advocacy commissioners across the country. And my main background is not in advocacy, it's in commissioning and it's in health. and it's in England. So I'm really, really glad to come back to the land of my birth. I was actually born in South Wales, but I'm covering North Wales, which is a change. But I suppose my main, the things that are exercising my mind and the things that my objectives are based on at the moment are starting off on the right foot on commissioning. A lot of councils out there, it seems to me, are rushing ahead thinking we've got to produce service specifications, but there's a piece of work that needs to be done before that really, which is population needs assessment, so that you find out what the needs and the assets within your community are and what the demand actually is for what types of service, and it's only then that you can write an appropriate and sustainable service spec. But I think this is a 3-year cycle. It's going to be iterative. There are going to be several goes around the track. There are going to be service specifications going off in parallel with needs assessment. So we need to make sure over the 3 years that all that comes together and the cycle goes around as it's supposed to. I'm also concerned that as part of the needs assessment and the whole of the commissioning cycle, that the citizens and the users of advocacy services are thoroughly engaged in that process and their voices are heard and help to shape that process, and that will of itself require advocacy support, obviously. And then the other main plank of work at the moment is working with Louise to turn our 1-year project plan into a 3-year programme plan, and also to work at the evaluation of it, because how do we know that all this has been effective and delivered what it's meant to deliver unless we evaluate it? And we've got some idea of the difference that the programme has made, and also the process evaluation, what learning can we get for the future and for future programmes, advocacy or anything else, about how to run a programme of this kind. So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Thanks, Val. Lovely. Caris?
I've got my notes. Okay, so I'm the Programme Development Officer for Partnerships, and I cover the whole of Wales. Quite a task, really. So what does a PDO for Partnerships do? Okay, the purpose of my role is to work with new and existing advocacy service providers, ensure they are tender ready for advocacy commissioning processes, and I think also to work with representative groups of potential service users, and as Louise said, that comes at a later stage. I see 3 main phases to my role, really. So phase 1, it's been a steep learning curve for my initial limited knowledge of advocacy, I'll be honest, and to what I believe is now a much more rounded understanding and appreciation of advocacy and the service it provides. I've read numerous reports on advocacy and made contact with most of the brand partners, as well as other partners that we wish to engage with, in addition to many advocacy providers. The foundation phase was to start developing a comprehensive and complete database of advocacy providers for adult Pan Wales. I've now met with most of the brand partners and still discovering further new advocacy providers by the week. I actually found 3 new ones yesterday.
And another one this morning.
Yes, yeah, and they're just in North West Wales, actually, those. Okay, additionally, I've been working with Louise to complete the Advocacy Counts 5 publication that will highlight the current advocacy landscape and provision across Wales. Phase 2, working with the Programme Development Officers for commissioning and hopefully gaining an insight to the approaches being taken by local authorities and health boards. And I think this will be essential information for me to help shape the support that I can offer the providers. Initial regional tendering workshops are planned for the autumn, and we've now confirmed dates in early November. So earlier discussions with providers have highlighted the enthusiasm to learn more about tendering, and I anticipate the support will improve their capacity and capability to tender, whilst ensuring they deliver the quality advocacy service at the same time. Further workshops and support will look at how providers can then collaborate to work as joint partners, in particular looking at methods and processes of forming partnerships or consortia for future tender bids. We've already begun discussions with the Wales Cooperative Centre and to work with their Care to Cooperate project, which we may collaborate on. And then the third phase, I believe, to be once we become aware of the strategies that local authorities and health boards adopt when commissioning, we can further make the support more relevant and appropriate to providers and begin in earnest on developing and overseeing delivery of an advocacy public awareness campaign. So networking with representative groups will provide the real-life case studies of how advocacy intervention has really made a difference to individual lives. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for that. Just to sort of round up some of the practical things that we're going to be developing and doing, you've heard a few of them already. I mean, as you can tell, the early stages of this, because it's so brand new, is a lot of research and building partnerships. It's key to what we're trying to achieve. So that's been the primary focus really of the last few months. We've already started developing our resources. We've got a flyer that we hand out. They're on the table. You can have one if you want one. Which gives the commissioners across Wales and other people who are interested in our programme a flavour of what we're trying to do and open up the discussions. The new newsletter went out last Friday night, I think. Hopefully you should have all had, Fionn should have sent that through. You should have had it in your inbox, have you? Had that? Yeah, brilliant. So that's going to be a bi-monthly resource that's going to build on everything you've heard already around commissioning and what's happening with the partnerships and all news about advocacy that's happening nationally and even across the UK. We're also, there's lots of resources we'll be planning to do. There's, as Hugh said, the good practice guidance. We'll be using our website to put things on as well. We are holding our national big event for advocates on the 21st of September and continuing to run the advocacy network. So that advocates have their sort of knowledge and capacity to deliver quality services built, and that's always very popular, continuing to do that. You've heard about some of the workshops Caris is going to be doing. We're starting to talk about technical workshops that we can develop with the commissioning teams, and also we're going to be holding a national launch of what we're trying of our programme on the 2nd of November this year as well. Advocacy Counts is going to be another really important tool. This is the 5th in the series. As Caris said, we're doing that at the moment. We're verifying data and getting ready to draft, or Caris is drafting that at the moment. So in conclusion, advocacy is a really important new duty. Age Cymru have been central in fighting for this new duty for many years as part of the safeguarding work we did and the campaigning work that we did in the policy team. And what we're trying to do is make sure that there's sustainable quality advocacy services across Wales, really important for older people, but also all vulnerable groups with protected characteristics across Wales. And at the moment we're listening to the views of people. We really need to know how we can support them in the best way, adding value to what's already being developed, and make sure that people themselves understand the new duties and how to make them a reality. And that's it, I think. Any questions?